Okay, so I'm going to keep doing these basic little tutorial things. I will do rigging and animation next, but for now I'll do backgrounds because someone asked for that. So let's look at this project file from the Rabbit Junk promo that I put up recently. And I think it's a good, because I mean I did the whole thing in 2 days. I didn't spend any time on it at all. And it just uses really simple objects, which I think is something that's good to start with when you get started in 3D. You know, you start with the basics. So this is that scene. Just for reference, let's look at it rendered. And something I just want to go over with this is like when you start out in 3D, and it's just good to learn anyway, is like if you can't make stuff look interesting or cool with simple objects, then you'll never be able to make complex stuff look interesting either. So you have to learn how to make simple things look, oops, there's a light turned off. Sorry. You have to learn how to make simple things look good, and then you can move up the ladder and start making your objects and your scenes more complex. But like with this background, there's nothing but these mannequin things, which I'll show you how I made those, or not even make them, I just tweaked them. And these are just rectangles coming out of the floor plane, and I'll show you how I did that. Just something really simple, but you know, and there's only, if you look at the scene, there's only 3 textures. There's not a million textures, and it's a super simple texture. So here's the scene with the lighting and the textures turned on. So you know, there's some depth and some cool stuff going on here, right? So just for reference, let's turn the lights off. This will confuse you. Just ignore this what I'm doing right now because I'm using some XREF fancy thing. Okay. So let's look at this same shot with no lights. So as you can see, it's very flat, it's very plain. There's no color, there's no contrast. It's just, you know, this just looks like crappy CG stuff. So the textures aren't complicated enough. I won't even turn those off because there's just like reflections and stuff. You can see here some of the reflection. Okay, so let's turn the lights back on. So you can see how much lighting does, right? So what is this background? So the way I did it, let's go to the background. Here's what the background looks like. So it's just made up of a plane, a ground plane, and then some of these mannequins that come with Cinema 4D that are here, figure inside this menu. So how did I make this thing? Well, let's take a look. I'll show you. So for my floor, I was like, okay, I don't want something that takes forever to render, and I want a real basic look. So I just went in primitive plane. So this just makes a polygon plane object, and it has, you know, you can, if you know what you're going to do, so I knew I was going to raise up a bunch of these rectangles that kind of look like buildings or something. And the way you do that, I didn't press C yet, so it's not editable, so it's still a parametric object. So what that means is that you can change the structure of the geometry. See if I turn this up to 40, now you can see there's more segments in here, 48. And I could turn this up, so now there's more in there. So you can still tweak, it's easier to tweak it out rather than if you went with a knife tool or did some complicated thing to try to get these to separate. So let's just go 22 and 23. So this is what I did. So all I did was go and get this plane. I pressed C to make it editable. So now I go, you know, into the polygon mode. I can select polygons. And then I just got the live selection tool, which allows you to draw selection. So then you just hold down the key or hold down your mouse, whatever. I just went like this. I drew some stuff there. And then I pressed I and undid preserve groups. So it'll kind of, you know, bring these out all on their own. Then I pressed D and extruded some of these up, right? So there's like one level. And then I just went back to this tool and then selected some other ones, maybe over here. Hold down Shift, and it'll keep selecting. It'll add to your selection. So let's do some more there. Same thing, I'm going to press I and go in a little bit, and then just so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to press D and maybe make these a little higher. So I just went around the scene and pulled some of these out. Let's go back to this tool and just maybe these will be the big buildings in the background or something. Press I again, D, make these really tall. So this is kind of how I did that background. It's just like this, right? And then since these are rectangles or whatever, select them all, press Control A or Apple A if you're on a Mac. Do your little pop-up thing, structure, and then you want to bevel these. So just click and then drag a little bit, and then now they're all beveled. So if you render them, they should have nice edges on them and stuff. So there's like the background, right? Part of it. And then what I did, see, because you know what it's really about with 3D, the way I use it, so there's all these tools that if you use them the way you're supposed to, they'll look like everyone else's 3D. But I mean, you should be an artist and you should be creative. So if you use these tools creatively, you can come up with looks and do things that look, you know, that are like artistic or creative. So that's your job, is to go in here and look at these things and see how they work, and then just think about them and figure out new ways to use them. And that's what makes you an artist. Because if you don't do that, then you're just a craftsman, or you're just, you know, pressing buttons. So that's what I strive to do. I look at stuff, I find new things, and I'm like, you know, you find a way to tweak it out to make it cool. So let's get this guy, which this is the way he comes in. I'm going to press T to scale him down. Let's make him like this big. And let's rotate him. Press R. Let's go like that. Press E. So remember ERT, get used to those things. So let's just put him back here, right? And then it's the same thing. If you look at him, I can't do anything. Like say, oh, I want to turn his arm, but I don't have access to any of that until you press C. And then when you press C, you'll see that now he's in all these different parts. So now this is what I did. I clicked up here, or actually I went to his left upper arm, went to the rotate tool, and then rotated his arm down. Same, went to the right upper arm, rotated that down, went around here, and then I went to, I think I went here, no, there, no, how did I do that? Figure upper body. Oh, I clicked this whole upper body and then I just kind of leaned it forward a little bit. And then same thing with his head. I kind of went like this. And then I went back to his arms, and then I was like, I kind of want to make him look all mopey. So I did that, and then I did that. So now he's kind of like this sad dude, mannequin dude looking over this place. You can tweak it more. You can go in these joints, do whatever you want. You can animate this guy too if you want to. So then I got this, and then I want to make another change to it, so I went. So say you want to, there's a connect option, which will take a bunch of different polygonal objects and turn them into one, which is useful for certain purposes. So to do that, I'd have to like select all of these, you know, like shift click them. Or Cinema 4D has a shortcut where you right click and you say select children, then it selects everything, right? And then I'm going to right click again and say connect. So now it creates a new object that is everything all connected together, so I can get this one and delete it. So now this is a new object that's all one, right? Then there's this other tool in here called an atom array. I don't know why it's called that, but check this out. So I get the figure, and if you get the figure and drop it in the atom array, now all of a sudden, check it out, this dude's like made of little spheres and cylinders. So then you can go into these settings and you say sphere radius, let's make it smaller, let's go 1 and 1. So now you can see he's like made up of a cage, and you can tweak this out even more. Let's turn the subdivisions down because it doesn't have to be fancy looking. So now you can kind of see how I made those mannequins, right? Then I just duplicated them and scaled them around. And I mean, this stuff, can you? Yeah. Since this has a little circle next to it, remember I showed you that before? You can animate these too, so you can have them like transforming and, you know, from really thin to like fatter or whatever. So just use it creatively. So then if you look at this, you're like, how to get red, right? Because if you look at the other scene. So all I did was get a spotlight. And then let's move into our 5 view. Let's put the spotlight underneath this guy, right? And then just like I showed you before, go to cameras, link active object, and then let's go into garage mode. Oops. And I want to look up to this guy. I'll look up through them. And then you're saying, oh my god, those buildings are in the way. Well, they are, but I'll show you how to get around that. So switch in align mode so we can actually see again. And okay, so now there's this light kind of going up to the guy, right? And then I went and made the light turn red. So it's a red light. But then there's these buildings and stuff that are in the way, right? Well, let me show you something cool in the light options. If you go into scene, you can tell it to exclude things or include things. So if you go include and I drop this dude in there, the light is only going to affect him and it's going to ignore everything else. So it won't even see the floor of the buildings. So if we render that, now you can see, it's hard to see, but there's a red light coming up on this guy. So, and then again, you can do your 3-point rig or just get creative with the lights in the background to give it a cooler look. I'll just leave that as one of those. Give the light a little tint like I was showing you before. And with the little work, you can get this to look like something a little more interesting. Right? So that's pretty much how I made the background. Let's go back to our scene. So if you look at this, you can figure this out now, right? It's just those mannequins duplicated all over the place, just like I showed you. Here's the ground raised up. Here, let's go into quick shading. Here's the ground raised up, and then there's just very simple objects, but it's all lighting and a little bit of textures. And let's look at the texture that's on this so you can just see how simple it is. So this texture is just grayish blue in the color channel. There's just a little tiny bit of reflection turned up. I just turned it on and turned it up a little bit, and then specular is turned on. That's it. And this is all stock. I didn't even touch this or touch this. I just turned reflection on and turned that up a little bit, and it just, so I believe when you get into 3D is that, or you get into anything, you just need to master the basics first or get good at the basics. So until you can get good making a scene look interesting with just primitive objects, squares and spheres and these basic things that are in here, don't try to move up to very complicated textures and objects and models. Like, make stuff look good, because you need to work on your composition and your framing and your photography and your lighting, and then move up to more complicated stuff, because you can get really screwed up if you try to get too complex too fast. So I hope that was useful. Next, I'll probably do rigging and animation unless I think of something else. But yes, this helps someone. Okay, bye. Complex stuff look interesting either. So you have to learn how to make simple things look. Oops, there's a light turned off. Sorry. You have to learn how to make simple things look good. And then, just for reference, let's look at it rendered. And something I just want to go over with this is like when you start out in 3D, and it's just good to learn anyway, is like if you can't make stuff look interesting or cool with simple objects, then you'll never be able to make. And I think it's a good, because I mean I did the whole thing in 2 days, I didn't spend any time on it at all, and it just uses really simple objects, which I think is something that's good to start with when you get started in 3D. You start with the basics. So this is at scene. Okay. So I'm going to keep doing these basic little tutorial things. I will do rigging and animation next, but for now I'll do backgrounds because someone asked for that. So let's look at this project file from the Rabbit Junk promo that I put up recently. You can move up the ladder and start making your objects and your scenes more complex. But like with this background, there's nothing but these mannequin things, which I'll show you how I made those, or not even make them, I just tweaked them. And these are just rectangles.